This happened 2 years ago. Until today, I still try to wrap my head around what happened. A woman I didn't know kept showing up in my daily routine. At first, I barely noticed her, just another face in the crowd. Then I started seeing her everywhere. I go to the same cafe every morning before work, order a black coffee, sit by the window, scroll through my phone. It's my routine. That morning, I noticed her sitting at a table near the counter. Dark hair, pale skin, staring into her cup like she was deep in thought. Nothing strange, but when I got up to leave, I caught her watching me. Not just a glance, she was studying me. Eyes locked onto my every move. I work in a high-rise downtown. When I stepped into the lobby the next morning, I froze. She was there, standing near the elevators, pretending to check her phone. My stomach tightened. There was no reason for her to be here. I told myself it was just a coincidence. But something about the way she stood, too still, too focused, made my skin crawl. I took the stairs instead. I stopped by a bookstore after work, needing a distraction. As I browsed the shelves, a voice spoke behind me. "That one's really good." I turned. It was her. She stood too close, smiling like we were old friends. I forced a polite nod and put the book back. "Thanks. You're here a lot," she said, tilting her head. "I've seen you before." My throat went dry. I had never seen her before last week. I mumbled an excuse and left. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, I glanced at the bookstore window. She was still inside, still smiling. I was in the middle of my workout when I saw her. She wasn't dressed for the gym. No bag, no towel, just standing near the entrance, staring at me through the mirror. I felt a rush of panic. She wasn't even pretending anymore. I grabbed my things and left immediately. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You left so fast. Didn't even say hi." My hands went numb. I hadn't given my number to anyone recently. I didn't respond. I installed a security camera outside my door that night. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the app with shaking hands. The footage showed a blurry figure standing just outside my door. She didn't knock. She didn't move. She just stood there for nearly an hour. The next morning, I packed a bag and left town. No goodbyes, no warning, just gone. For a while, I thought I had escaped her. Then, one evening, I checked into a motel 2 cities away. I walked into the lobby, exhausted but relieved. I handed my ID to the receptionist. She smiled as she scanned it. "Oh," she said, looking up. "Your wife already checked in earlier." My stomach dropped. I wasn't married. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay even. "Are you sure? There must be a mistake." She frowned slightly and turned the screen toward me. There, next to my name on the check-in log, was a second signature. Sloppy, rushed, but it was mine. Or at least, someone trying to copy it. The room number next to it made my stomach drop. 203. I gripped the counter, my knuckles turning white. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the receptionist as she asked if I needed another key. I forced a smile. "No, thank you. I'll be right back." Then I walked straight out of the lobby and into the parking lot. I needed to think. Had she followed me? Had she been tracking me this whole time? The motel was 2 cities away. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I debated calling the police. I should have, but something told me that by the time they arrived, she'd be gone. Instead, I made a decision. I went back inside, keeping my head down, and asked for a different room. The receptionist, now looking a little confused, gave me room 117 on the ground floor. I thanked her and took the key, but I didn't go to my room right away. Instead, I walked past the stairs and stopped in front of room 203. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Then I heard it. Soft movement. Not walking, just shifting. Like someone standing just behind the door, waiting. A chill ran down my spine. I turned and walked away. That night, I barely slept. Every noise outside made my pulse spike. I had the chair jammed under the doorknob, my phone in my hand. Nothing happened. But when I checked out the next morning, my hands shaking as I handed back the key, the receptionist gave me a strange look. "Did you have a guest last night?" she asked. I froze. "No, why?" She hesitated. "Around 3 a.m., a woman came to the desk asking for a spare key to your room." A cold sweat broke out over my skin. "What did you tell her?" The receptionist shifted uncomfortably. "We don't give out keys without ID." "But she knew your full name and your birthday. Said she was your wife." My stomach twisted. The receptionist continued, lowering her voice. "She just stared at me for a long time when I told her no. Then she smiled and said, 'That's okay. I'll see him soon anyway.'" I checked out immediately, and I did call the police. They took my statement but didn't seem too concerned. Since she hadn't committed a crime, there wasn't much they could do except take a report. They told me to be careful, but for weeks after that, I felt like I was being watched. A car parked a little too long near my new apartment. A shadow near the grocery store exit. A number with no caller ID that never left a voicemail. Then one day it all stopped. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if she got bored or found someone else. I never thought much about the parking lot at my job. It was just a regular lot rows of cars, bright overhead lights, the occasional security guard making rounds. I usually worked late, leaving around 10 or 11 p.m., when most of the other cars were gone. The first note appeared on a Tuesday. It was a small, folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. At first, I assumed it was a flyer, but when I unfolded it, my stomach tightened. "You have a beautiful smile." There was no name, no contact information, just those 5 words. I looked around, half expecting to see someone watching me from the shadows. But the lot was empty except for a few scattered cars. Maybe it was a harmless note. Maybe someone had mistaken me for someone else. I threw it away and went home. But the next night, there was another one. "You look sad today. I hope you're okay." I sat in my car, gripping the paper, my pulse pounding in my ears. Someone had been watching me closely enough to notice my expressions. This wasn't random. I started being more cautious. I left work with a group when I could, checked my back seat before getting into my car, and scanned the parking lot for anything unusual. Then, on Friday, the notes changed. "Why are you ignoring me?" I hadn't told anyone about the notes, but this one sent a chill through my spine. Whoever was leaving them expected a response. They thought we were having a conversation. I reported it to security, but they brushed it off. "Probably some bored teenager messing around," one of the guards said. "Let us know if it keeps happening." The next night, I found a single rose on my windshield. No note this time, just the flower, its deep red petals almost black under the parking lot lights. I didn't touch it. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove straight home. By now, I was on edge all the time. I started parking in different spots, changing my schedule, even having co-workers walk me to my car. For a few days, nothing happened. Then, on Wednesday, my luck ran out. I left work a little earlier than usual, just after sunset. As I walked to my car, my heart dropped. Someone was standing next to it. A man, mid-30s, average height, dark hoodie, hands stuffed in his pockets. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, facing my car, as if he had been waiting for me. I stopped walking. My mouth went dry. Then, as if sensing my hesitation, he slowly turned his head and smiled. I bolted. I ran back to the building, heart hammering, and called security. By the time they got to the lot, the man was gone. The only thing left behind was another note on my windshield. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I never drove home so fast in my life. That night, I packed a bag and stayed with a friend. The next day, I called my boss and quit my job. I never went back to that parking lot again. But sometimes, when I walk alone at night, I get the feeling that someone is still watching. It started with something small. I live alone in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people nod at each other but don't really talk. My job keeps me out late, and I usually get home around midnight. One night, As I was pulling into my driveway, I noticed a silver sedan parked across the street. It wasn't unusual. People have visitors, but something about it felt off. The engine was running, but the driver's seat was just a black void. I shrugged it off. Maybe they were waiting for someone. But the next night, the car was there again. Same spot. Engine on. No movement. By the third night, a cold weight settled in my stomach. The car wasn't just parked there randomly. It was waiting. For me, I decided to test a theory. Instead of pulling into my driveway, I kept driving, taking random turns around the neighborhood. After about 5 minutes, I checked my rearview mirror. The silver car was following me. I told myself I was imagining things, but my hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I turned onto a busy road, hoping to lose them, but the car stayed 2 cars behind, keeping pace. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove to a 24-hour diner and sat in a booth by the window, watching the parking lot. 30 minutes later, the silver car pulled in. A man got out. He was average looking, mid-40s, baseball cap, nondescript jacket. If I saw him in a crowd, I wouldn't look twice. But now, he was standing outside his car, staring through the diner window. At me, I didn't move. I didn't blink. My mind raced through every horror movie scenario. Was he going to come inside? Wait for me to leave? Then, just as suddenly as he arrived, he got back in his car and drove off. I wanted to believe it was over. Deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next morning, I checked my security camera footage. At 3:15 a.m., the silver car had driven past my house. 3 times, I reported it to the police, but without a license plate or a direct threat, they couldn't do much. "Call us if he does anything," the officer said. That night, I parked in a different spot down the street and sat in my darkened car waiting. At 12:30 a.m., the silver car appeared again. But this time, it didn't just park. It slowed to a crawl in front of my house. My stomach dropped as I saw a figure step out of the car and walk up my driveway. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I turned my headlights on full beam and floored it toward my house. The man whipped around, momentarily blinded, then sprinted back to his car. I barely caught a glimpse of his face before he sped off. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen the car since. But every night, I wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, convinced that somewhere in the darkness, he's still watching.